Hello everyone, this is Fantasy-esque, and welcome back to Season 2 of Royal Clan in ClanGen, the Warrior Cats clan generator game. When we left off in the previous episode, we had 2 new royal apprentices, which was very exciting, especially with the mentors they got, seeing their personalities change a little bit as they're getting older. Now, unfortunately, they didn't have such a great patrol for the first time out in the forest because they were focused on hunting, which is yes exciting, but they didn't manage to catch anything. But we are no longer worried about food right now because the patrol their mentors went on, which was kind of separate from the apprentices, ended up being a huge success, and we brought back a huge haul. So no need to worry about food at this point. But guys, in this episode, it seems as though one of our cats in particular is having a very bad day, and we'll see why in a second. But it is the second turn of New Leaf, and we are at Moon 85. Over in the Leader's Den, Queen Rainstar has been maintaining all of her alliances, so we are still in an age of peace. And let's dive to the events. So, Flailstorm's running nose is gone. Inkfeather travels to Storm Clan, one of the independent cat groups living in the forest, to resolve some recent personal disputes. The meeting goes better than expected, and Inkfeather returns the plan to solve the issue for good. And then this is where the bad day starts. Freezefur's confession of love to Frostfade could have gone better. Actually, anything would have been better than the rejection he got. Ugh, my heart. And then Freezefur misstepped and slipped from a rock, spraining his paw. He must have been distracted for sure, thinking about the rejection. And yeah, that ended up happening. And then Cinnamon Paw has gotten a stomach ache, so one of our apprentices is not feeling too good. And Freezefur, unfortunately, is now not in a state to be able to go out on a patrol, which kind of sucks for his apprentice Riverpaw. Also, I didn't check this last time, but in terms of experiences for the mentors, Cinnamon Paw has a clear advantage because Frostfade is the more experienced mentor, and Frostfade has actually trained another apprentice in the past, so he has a history of teaching, whereas Freezefur doesn't. He is the inexperienced one, so Riverpaw in that sense has a disadvantage, but we'll see how they go. But yeah, I feel terrible for Freezefur because I was actually quite happy for Freezefur and Frostfade working together, and then this was the first romance that Freezefur's ever had, so I was kind of hopeful. Now the funny thing is that in the last episode, Frostfade got rejected by Ghostfeather after confessing, and then this episode, Freezefur got rejected by Frostfade after confessing. So yeah, Frostfade, I kind of will say that I do like the attention he's getting after being the invisible cat for so long. Literally, yes, he was rejected, but also he's doing the rejecting. So he's confessing and being confessed to. I think that's quite the turn of events for someone who's usually not in the limelight like Frostfade. But okay, let's dive over to the Medicine Cat Den. Icicle Speck was given Ragwort as treatment for running nose. Flailstorm was given Ragwort as treatment for running nose, and then his running nose healed. And then Icicle Speck gathered Betony, moss, plantain, and wild garlic this moon, so he was quite successful. Now let's go ahead, check out relationships, and see if we can get a timeline for when this rejection happened. Scorchmoss and Queen Rainstar work together to lead a scary bug out of the camp. Scorchmoss thinks that Quillrunner is acting overly dramatic lately. Icicle Speck and Flailstorm often look at each other and smile knowingly about something. Icicle Speck and Cinnamon Paw are assigned the same task. So father-son bonding. I don't feel like I see Icicle Speck. Actually, no, I can't say that. I was going to say I don't see him spending time with his kids, but that's a lie because I vividly remember him telling stories to both his sons about stuff, and I made the point that it's nice he's popular, but that he's also engaged with his family. But I feel like individually like this, maybe I don't see too much of interactions between them. Actually, his kids I see interacting with everyone in general. Maybe they're going to inherit some of their father's popularity as they get older. Flailstorm starts to plan things, hoping that Flarefreckle will get involved. Flailstorm bestows wisdom onto Frostfade. Oh my goodness, don't tell me this was a wisdom that resulted in Frostfade rejecting flippin', I don't know, rejecting Freezefur. Maybe Flailstorm said something really odd about how, you don't need love to go on. You don't need love this young in your life. You can occupy yourself with other things. I don't know what Flailstorm told him. It must have had an effect on something. Shining Stripe and Riverpaw work together to lead a scary bug out of the camp. Shining Stripe and Freezefur cuddle during a storm. An injured butterfly lands in front of Flarefreckle and Inkfeather. They take turns nurturing it for a few days until it can fly again. Flarefreckle asks Cinnamon Paw how he's doing. Burphell sees the blood of Fresh Kill on Flailstorm's paws and feels a prickle of discomfort. Burphell asks Ghostfeather how he's doing. Inkfeather suspects that Scorchmoss gets special treatment. Foxclaw motivated Inkfeather, his mother, to get out of her nest this morning. Inkfeather might be reading a little too far into Quillrunner's kindness. Okay. Quillrunner thinks Cinnamon Paw looks nicer than him today. Cinnamon Paw laughs a little too long at one of Quillrunner's jokes. Frostfade and Quillrunner, so these two brothers, know more about each other than anyone else. That's actually so cute. We love family bonding. Frostfade and Cinnamon Paw accidentally startled one another. Okay, so, mentor and apprentice are spending time with each other. Foxclaw and Flarefreckle enjoy each other's company. Ghostfeather keeps getting on Icicle Speck for a bad habit, and it's putting a rift between them. Freezefur sees Scorchmoss lazing about in the sunshine and is resentful of how little she's expected to contribute. Freezefur wonders why Frostfade keeps spending time with him when others usually don't like his attitude, but he certainly won't object. Makes sense because Freezefur is strict, Frostfade is adventurous. That's kind of why, he expected them to clash, but they didn't during the patrols they were doing, spending time with each other. Now they're mentors. Freezefur's excited. Maybe they'll get to spend more time with each other, and maybe he's starting to, at this point, read a little bit too much into it. And then he decides to confess to Frostfade, and Frostfade makes it clear that, yes, they get along, but there's nothing more than just friendship and them being colleagues. There's nothing romantic there, at least on Frostfade's side. Garlic Glow ignored Freezefur's advice on a patrol and nearly got hurt because of it. Ghostfeather brought Garlic Glow some dry bedding. Queen Rainstar, debates the meaning of a prophetic dream with Garlic Glow. It's kind of good to see that after the initial rough patch between Queen Rainstar and Garlic Glow, that they're getting along better in recent moons and episodes, I'm noticing. Queen Rainstar, Foxclaw, and Freezefur had a nice talk while eating. Queen Rainstar warns Cinnamon Paw about something on the ground so Cinnamon Paw doesn't trip. Queen Rainstar and Shining Stripe have been sickeningly lovey-dovey all day. Oh my goodness, yes, this is exactly what we want to see. This is exactly the kind of thing we want to see, is these two interacting and actually being more romantic with each other, which last time we discussed, I think Rainstar was a little bit fearful of the feeling of falling in love, but maybe things have changed. Maybe she finally worked up her courage. Cinnamon Paw and Foxclaw always have something to share with each other, and finally, Garlic Glow lets Riverpaw, her favorite son, know that a clanmate was talking badly about him. Yikes. Okay, so that's all we have for events, so let's wrap up over here and move on to the cat list. Okay, let's continue with the cat list. First up, we are going to get a reminder on our loyalties, of course. I'm really curious whether or not the youngsters, when they come of age finally, are going to be able to, change the appearance over here of who is in support to Rainstar. Because Rainstar, obviously with all of the adults that existed in the clan when she came in, she doesn't have any supporters in them. But if she can influence anyone, it's going to be the next generation, the youngsters that are born in the clan. Hopefully she can manage to get, Cinnamon Paw and Riverpaw on her side as they get older. For now, though, that is not our focus. In terms of relationships, we had a bit of a mixed bag, for sure. So the first thing I noticed was with Queen Rainstar. She has had a romance gain with Shining Stripe. I think we saw earlier in events them being lovey-dovey, which makes me so happy. Now, Shining Stripe on his end didn't have any sort of changes, so I think Rainstar must have been the one to initiate this. Now, she was kind of holding back in the last episode, but maybe she's getting a little bit of courage to, spend time with Shining Stripe. Maybe she's feeling some reassurance from how steady Shining Stripe is, but whatever the case, things are going good on, her side. The next thing I noticed was with Inkfeather, a couple things with her. Now, she, guys, has a new romance with Quillrunner. Quillrunner, who hold on a second, she was wondering whether she's reading too much into Quillrunner's kindness, but she doesn't realize it, I suppose. Quillrunner has had an eye on her for a while now, and he's been helping her because of that, because there is some feelings attached. But up until this point, she hasn't really noticed much. But it seems as though his attentions are paying off because she's finally kind of looking at him, and there's a flutter in her chest. So that's really cute. And then I noticed that Inkfeather hates Scorchmoss, so she has made pretty much her first enemy in the clan. And there is that. Now, why Inkfeather might hate Scorchmoss, I kind of feel as though maybe it's because she finally got wind that Scorchmoss hates her for whatever reason, for, her own ridiculous, insecurities and such, and that rubs Inkfeather really the wrong way. And I think earlier this episode, she was suspecting that Scorchmoss gets special treatment. I feel like going further into that, maybe Inkfeather feels as though Scorchmoss is getting to enjoy her retirement because cats like Inkfeather are working really hard to keep the clan and the grotto functioning, and she finds it quite entitled of Scorchmoss to then sit in the Elder's Den and point fingers at Inkfeather and, hate her for maybe the little joys in Inkfeather's life. She finds that, quite a irritating thing to do. So yeah, I can kind of see why Inkfeather might have become enemies with Scorchmoss. So now it's mutual. But you know what? I kind of feel I don't know. I know I use the term enemies, but a lot of the times the terms I use, I change my opinion on them depending on how I feel about the way certain things are developing. Kind of like how we only say soulmates when it's mutual. I feel like enemies should only be mutual. If anything, I should, separately track who hates who. That's fine. But for example, in this case, because Inkfeather and Scorchmoss mutually hate each other, they should actually be enemies. But it doesn't make sense if, you're enemies with someone but they don't hate you. How are you enemies? You just hate them. It's one-sided. So I think I might change the situations in which I use the term enemies. But yeah, Inkfeather and Scorchmoss right now, they are actual enemies because they mutually hate one another. Okay, that was kind of good to get out of the way. That aside, we also have a change with Frostfade. So Frostfade, who rejected Freezefur earlier today, he has, guys, developed a new romance with Freezefur. So even though he actually rejected Freezefur, I suppose Freezefur's confession took him by surprise, and maybe he was in a haste to say, no, I don't feel the same way. But now he can't help thinking about Freezefur because Freezefur has made his feelings clear. So maybe today is not so bad of a day for Freezefur, not as bad as he thought it was initially. And then the next thing I noticed was with Freezefur himself. I feel like in a lot of ways the star of the episode. Freezefur has had a romance gain for Frostfade, which I don't think is a surprise. And right now, he is maybe harboring a little bit of bitterness, perhaps, the sting of rejection, and also falling off a rock, and now he's got a sprain. And I feel like in a lot of ways, Freezefur might actually be thankful that he has that sprain, because it means he doesn't have to, come across Frostfade when they go out on patrol together. He can avoid Frostfade and the rejection a little bit longer. But he doesn't realize he's made an impression, a serious impression on Frostfade. But it's interesting from his point of view that he is not entirely friends with Frostfade just yet. And for Frostfade, is it the same? No, see, Frostfade sees Freezefur as a friend. That could also be why, from Frostfade's perspective, he can't help but think about Freezefur more, and why Freezefur made an impression is because he already perceived like Freezefur as a friend. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, so that is actually all I had for relationships, so it was like a mixed bag. Let's go over to a matchmaker, Inkfeather, have a matchmaking session between Queen Rainstar and Shining Stripe. There we go! Rainstar has finally fallen in love with Shining Stripe. I think that was a good build-up to what we already saw in events of her, taking the courage to be more lovey-dovey with Shining Stripe. She finally decided that, okay, enough holding back. Her feelings are pretty strong. She's become aware of them and confessing to Shining Stripe. That is the case. And I feel like Shining Stripe would lovingly say, I know. I felt it in your actions before you said it. I know. And I feel the same. Ah, that's wonderful. Okay, but comfort, romance has increased, jealousy has decreased, so they're going really well. Now that the both of them are in love, I would love to see a litter of kittens. Like, please, guys. Please, guys. Okay. That is that. We should probably go ahead and take a look. Actually, before we take a look at what everyone's doing for the day, can we check rankings for the apprentices? I want to take a look at rankings. So let's see who's kind of the more talented sibling, maybe. Cinnamon Paw has 12 experience and his brother has 7. Okay, this could also be the guidance of Frostfade that Cinnamon Paw has like an advantage with. But Cinnamon Paw is ahead of his brother right now, so he is the star student pretty much. Yeah, he's the top of his batch right now, in line to become the next prince. So Riverpaw has a bit of catching up to do. I don't know how well it's going to work out for him though, because his mentor Freezefur is not going to be able to go out on patrols and guide him, but we'll see what sort of arrangements Freezefur has made. That is good to see, especially because Cinnamon Paw is my favorite of the two, so I kind of like seeing him on top. Okay, now let's see what everyone's doing for the day. Queen Rainstar is thinking about battle strategies. Garlic Glow wouldn't mind bragging about her position in the clan to some old kitty pet friends. Icicle Speck can't keep up with Riverpaw. Inkfeather found a wonderful napping spot outside camp. Shining Stripe is drinking water from a nearby stream. Flare Freckle doesn't get any work done all morning, too busy climbing trees. Bear Pelt enjoys the warmth of New Leaf. Quill Runner is eavesdropping on his mother Flare Freckle. Frostfade is feeling silly. You know why? He's probably feeling silly because he rejected Freezefur, and then he's realizing that he can't stop thinking about Freezefur, and now he's a little bit worried because Freezefur is injured and he wants to go check up on him, but because he rejected Freezefur, it'll be awkward to go check up on him. So now he's going on patrol, and it's supposed to be good that he and Freezefur are gonna get a reprieve from the awkwardness of facing each other, but then he's kind of wishing that Freezefur was coming to patrol, so now he's feeling silly because he's so conflicted. He's so entertaining, Frostfade. Foxclaw is sitting quietly on the far side of camp. Ghostfeather is soaking in the new leaf warmth. Freezefur helps out around camp in between his duties. Cinnamon Paw knows he'll get picked to go to the gathering. I love the confidence. Riverpaw is looking forward to today. Scorchmaw saw some wandering two legs today, and Flailstorm is soaking in the new leaf warmth. So, Flailstorm, you are hanging out with Ghostfeather. Yeah, you hang out together. Okay, so that is all we have for our cat list, so let's wrap up over here and move on to patrols. Okay, let's continue with our patrols. We currently have 122 food and we need 40 prey, so we don't have to worry about hunting at all. Last episode was actually really good for that. We'll send out a royal physician, Icicle Speck, to see what he gets up to. The plantain plants have reawoken, and Icicle Speck plans to go gather some of their leaves. Proceed. Icicle Speck fails to find any plantain, and as the plant sometimes dies completely in leaf bare, can't use any of the spots he knows from last year. Okay, and now we have, let's see, a patrol of 6 and a patrol of 5. So let's go ahead. Okay, well, it seems as though Freezefur has decided that, he's asked Frostfade for some help, and Frostfade has agreed to look over and supervise Riverpaw since Freezefur can't actually attend. And I feel like this might be Frostfade's way of making it up to Freezefur a little bit and giving into that, conflict he has within himself regarding Freezefur. And then we have Flare Freckle, Garlic Glow, Shining Stripe, and Queen Rainstar. Now, Frostfade has decided that he is going to continue giving his apprentice, Cinnamon Paw, who is ahead of his brother by quite a bit, he's going to give him some free reign, some freedom to kind of observe the other cats and tell him what he learns. So, good for him. But that definitely is going to give him a boost over his brother for sure. But okay, let's send out our bigger patrol. As the patrol walks through the woods, Frostfade explains an idea he had for squirrel hunting. It sounds a little strange, but perhaps it could work. Proceed. Frostfade suggests baiting the squirrels with food and picking them off when they come out to eat. All the patrol has to do is set the trap. With Garlic Glow on the patrol, they rarely have to lift a paw, and each cat carries multiple squirrels home. A large amount of prey is brought to camp, which is really good. Okay, I feel like Riverpaw might have really benefited from that, and I feel like he might even think his brother's mentor is like really cool after seeing how good Frostfade is at hunting. And then we have Cinnamon Paw, Ghost Feather, Fox Claw, Quill Runner, and Bear Pelt going out together. So let's see what they get up to. While on patrol, Foxclaw notices some suspicious paw prints in the mud beneath the canopy. Proceed. The paw prints lead to a trespassing rogue. With a furious hiss, Quill Runner throws himself at the rogue and together with the rest of the patrol drives them off Royal Clan territory. Okay, so that was definitely more confrontational than what Riverpaw was exposed to, but I think this would have been really helpful for Cinnamon Paw to kind of get a better idea of the dangers they face in the forest in which they live, outside of, not the cushioned grotto, but the protected grotto. Okay, so all in all, I think it was really good for our apprentices. I mean, now we have 193 prey, so really, we're going good for food, they're learning things, and it seems as though of the two brothers, Cinnamon Paw seems to be the more talented one. At least that's how it seems right now. But okay, guys, with that said and done, I'm going to leave off here. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.